Welcome back to a new week of Out of the Bubble podcast, and today we have a lot to talk about. For anyone that has followed me for a while, you will know how passionate I've become about the lack of representation in the beauty industry. It's as if we kind of disappear off the edge of a cliff after 40 as far as the beauty industry is concerned. Although we have started to see some changes, some brands are starting to listen to us. It's a lot of tokenism still going on, and I only wrote an article a couple of weeks ago about the fact that Telegraph shared an article that was clearly aimed at midlife. It had that word in the title about skin and beauty care products, and yet the models they used were much younger, and it sends such a damaging negative message out there that we should be ashamed, we shouldn't show ourselves, we should kind of not have to be visible in later in life, and it's something that really I'm very passionate about. So I know today's conversation is going to be a really interesting one. Today I am joined by Amy Babes. Amy is an award-winning beauty and hair and makeup and beauty bridal artist, but she is most importantly the founder of the Beauty Rebellion, and she is on a mission to get that message loud and clear to the beauty industry that we need diversity, we need to change our perceptions of the perfect body and what the beauty industry should be looking like. So grab a coffee, whatever you're doing, sit back and enjoy. So good morning, Amy. How are you this morning?
I'm good, thank you, babe. I'm enjoying this. There's a bit of sunshine blasting through my window this morning, which makes a massive difference to your mood, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So are you an autumn person? Do you like the kind of change of seasons, or are you a...
I have very much enjoyed the fresh air this morning. I do enjoy the summer, but I don't enjoy being constantly hot. So I have really enjoyed that sort of fresh air, autumny vibes. But I don't like it when it starts raining and getting wet. That's what I don't like. I like being cool but not wet.
The grey.
Mm.
Anyway, on a more cheerful note, I've already done the introduction, and I know that you and I have got a lot to talk about today. But if you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would it be?
Well, this is always an interesting question when you have to start doing these sorts of things. So I'll give it some thought, Rachel, and these will be the best ones for your audience to get a gist of what I'm all about. So the first word I would use is rebellious. So I ask a lot of questions. I don't take things at face value. If I see things that aren't right, that don't sit right with me, I will challenge them. And that's a big basis for why I'm working the way that I do with my business. So that's definitely one of my descriptive words. The second one is that I'm very kind. I've got a big heart. I love hard. My family are everything to me. And I've got a soft spot for people that need help. So I would say that I've got a very kind heart. And I talk a lot, so hopefully you can keep me in check. Otherwise, your podcast will be 3 hours long. But I'm very talkative. I've got a lot to say, and I'm quite direct with my approach. So those would be my 3 words to describe me.
Fabulous, thank you. And I love that rebellious streak that we're going to hear lots more about. I'm really excited to talk about it. So for anybody that doesn't really know you, obviously founder of the Beauty Rebellion, but you are kind of really paving a way and pushing forward to make changes in the beauty industry. But this is something that's kind of still a fairly new career to you in terms of what you did before. So can you kind of give us a bit of backstory before we get stuck into it?
Yeah, so I've had a bit of an unusual life in terms of changes in my career. So for the first 10 years of my working life, I was actually a police officer. So I worked for West Midlands Police. I did a variety of roles there. Spent a lot of time working on the public protection unit, so dealing with domestic abuse, serious sexual offences, that kind of thing, and living in a headspace that was very negative. It's quite a moaning environment. It was quite hard being involved in those really hard parts of people's life and not being able to kind of get them the results that they needed to move on from it and stuff. Made it really, really hard to stay there. So when I had my son, I decided to leave, and so I'd got 10 years behind me, left when I was just turning 30, I think, and had retrained like an overlap towards the end of my police career. I'd started working in the bridal industry, basically. So I was doing hair and makeup for weddings. So I was running that business alongside the police, and it was growing, which helped to make the decision then to leave that police career to pursue my work in the bridal industry. So I did that, but had my daughter very quickly. So my children are my absolute world and my motivation for the subject that we're going to spend most of the talk talking on. because I want the world to be a better place for them. But I've kind of had to manage a lot of my self-employed career around being a mum as well, which, as we know, can be quite challenging. So I carried on working freelance and doing bridal, but trying to do other beauty treatments so that I could offer brides more of a package. Opened a salon that was predominantly aimed at brides and that kind of wedding prep world. And just before the pandemic, probably about 6 to 9 months before, I'd come away from the salon and I was working from a home salon, which my favourite thing about being with clients is the friendships and the relationships that you get to build with them. So I spend a lot of time with them talking. They talk about a lot of quite intimate, deep feelings, really. I feel like that because as a beauty therapist, there's no emotional connection with them. Like you're kind of able to be quite like non-judgmental about other people that are involved in stuff. Yeah, people tend to share a lot, so that was really starting to build my understanding of a lot of the emotional baggage and trauma and stuff that women is who I work with mostly, that women carry, and the pressures to look good. Obviously, because of that beauty work, they will talk to you about how they feel about how they look. I've had clients talking to me about concerns around eating disorders that they might have. I've got people talking to me about how much they dislike what they look like. You know, the whole thing with the bridal world is a constant focus on what they're going to look like for this big day, worrying about whether their makeup will look right, whether they'll look ugly, blah, blah. You know, it's just like really deep insecurities that would come out in the conversations. So when the pandemic hit, we had to close to clients, couldn't have face-to-face clients, but what that did was give me some space to sort of reassess a little bit about where my passion was. And it was such a fuss trying to get opened again, the way the government handled the reopening, that actually it really made it difficult with the children going back to school and stuff. So I made the decision to stop, to carry on with my bridal work, but the day-to-day beauty treatments, facials, brows, that sort of stuff, I called a stop to, so that I could study. I've been working, doing some learning around positive psychology, around eating disorder awareness, lots of different things that kind of come into that category. And then this year I've just launched my first book, which is called The Body Confidence Master Plan, which is a guided journal that helps people to sort of delve into where their body confidence issues have come from, educating them a little bit more about how their mind works, encouraging people to understand about their value as a person, not just as a body. You know, tools to create a body positive world around us. And just I've really found my passion in helping people, and I think it's always what I've been looking for. That's why I joined the police in the first place. Couldn't make it work properly. Love doing my beauty stuff, but you're helping people in a bit of a superficial way. And then now I feel like a really natural place for me to be, to kind of combining all of those skills together, to be helping people learn about their body image. And having been so involved in the beauty industry, it's allowed me to see how toxic an environment that is for this subject area, and how much it's contributing to people's poor mental health. And I feel that we can do better as an industry. I mean, I love my industry, but I see where it's doing bad, and I know that we can do better, and that's what I'm trying to raise awareness of, drive some training in it, and just help the beauty industry be a bit more of a flagship for positive body image. So that's what I want to do.
Amy. I love it. And what a journey you've been on, though. And when you first when I first heard your story about the fact that you've gone from the police force, which I'm imagining is still quite a male orientated institution to be working for, to a more feminine industry in the beauty industry, I was thinking, gosh, that's such a big difference. But then when listening to you talk, then when you said about it's all based around helping people, and it's just how you found a path's been weaved for you to get to where you are now, which is really interesting.
And they do seem like they're really different, but I think that the skill set that I learned from the police, I'm naturally quite an assertive person anyway, but that sort of being able to organise, to be able to politely command a room, get people to do what I need them to do, actually has been really, really helpful with the work that I do with my clients. I'm good at conversation, I'm good at asking questions, all of those skills I learned in the police, able to organise a wedding morning, keep people calm when they're stressed. So actually all of the skills were really transferable and have made me really good at what I do in my beauty role. They are just different environments. I have struggled with women. I do struggle with female dynamics. So it's one of the things that attracted me to the police in the first place. So that's been a bit of a journey, kind of having to learn to, deal with women, because we're a different kettle of fish, aren't we? And I do like.
We are. So how's that gone? How has that got easier the older you've got, do you think?
It's got easier the more work I've done on myself, the more I understand how I work and how I tick, and how sometimes the things that people don't respond well to in my personality are actually there because it's triggering something in themselves. So I've been able to sort of step away from the feeling like it's me that's a problem all the time. So it's come from a lot of years of working on myself, and just I'm a real big fan of talking therapy and journaling and meditating and all of that sort of stuff, the stuff that helps you tune in with your heart and your head. So that's been the biggest thing that's helped me.
Yeah, brilliant. And what about, because obviously you're right, it's almost been like, it's like a therapy session for some people when they go to a beauty salon or to a hairdresser, and they kind of offload everything that they're feeling and whatever's going on in their lives. But what about your own kind of body confidence journey? Have you always had a good relationship with your body?
No. It's a bit of a strange one, because I wouldn't say that my body confidence has necessarily been rock bottom, as in I don't look in the mirror every day and detest what I see. Mine has been a lot more to do with perception, other people's perceptions of me. I've had a real battle with my weight, especially after having my daughter. So the last 6 years have been the hardest. It's kind of where it came to a bit of a head, really, where I've identified that actually I've got some real issues with disordered eating. But it's different. What I would say, you will know this, Rachel, is that body image and body confidence, it's so varied. It's rare that somebody's story is identical to somebody else's. So, but because there's so many different facets of it, there's so many different things that can make us have an issue with how we look. So for me, it's always been, I've been on a diet since I was 19. My mum, I grew up in a house with my mum being constantly on a diet. She's always been Slimming World Weight Watchers. So I was always around that kind of talk, that kind of analysis. And she has always weighed smaller than I have, less on the scales. And it's been an ongoing thing. So I've always been heavy. So even when my body has been small and my weight has been heavy. So when I first joined the police and I was doing my medical assessments and stuff, they were weighing me and telling me that I was obese according to the BMI. So lots of little trickles of bits and bobs like that, where I've always been very conscious. I've always been a bigger frame than my friends. Everyone's always been wearing smaller sizes than me. But my body isn't the biggest body, and it never has been. It's these things when I was like 19, 20, when they're telling me I'm obese, wearing clothes sizes like a 12, and I now wear a 16 to 18. But the focus of the numbers on the scales for me has been really heavy going, because it's really difficult to kind of ignore that it's there, and it makes you feel like you're doing something wrong, or and after I had my daughter, I've really, really struggled with losing weight. And all of the diets that I've tried before, couldn't get a grip on them. So then you get into this spiral of, well, you've done it before and now you can't be asked, and all the brain chatter starts up. So my body image, body confidence journey has been predominantly around my weight, but not necessarily having a bad relationship with the mirror. Because I'm quite glam. I like to get dressed up. I like to do makeup, do my hair. Sort clothes out that suit my body shape, all of those sorts of things. So it's never been necessarily a relationship with the mirror. It's been a relationship with the scales. It's been very hard for me, and it's then just spiraled into a real difficult relationship with food that I have been having to work on with a therapist. I still have to work on that now. So it's just about healing some of that, all of that diet culture that has taken over my life. To relearn to, manage my hunger signals, my fullness, not feeling guilt when I'm eating, not obsessing about clean eating, all of that sort of stuff. So it's that's my version of my body image stuff.
Loads of people will be able to relate to that as well. And it's, it's like you say, we're all got our own journeys through this, and it's packed full of lots of different negative things that other people have put on us over the years, but there will be crossovers in lots of our journeys that we could all relate to different bits of it. And I think it's really important that we share this, because I talk a lot about being super body confident. I am now, so much more than I ever have been in my life, but I still have bad days, and I still
100%.
have things that I have to constantly work on to remind myself to not go down that spiral. It's never going to be a done deal, but unless we see changes, like conversations like this, and changes that need to be made in the beauty industry, that's never going to change for the next generations, is it?
No, not at all. And I think my brother-in-law a couple of weeks ago took me by surprise with a question that really was a frustrating one, because my mind monkeys woke up big time. And it's because my niece was reading my book, and he said that body confidence. He went, well, do you consider yourself to be body confident? And I thought, oh God, here we go. Like, it's not a simple answer to what appears to be a very simple question, especially when I'm dealing with a bloke who's a bit, will have opinions about what he thinks I look like. And I thought, I was like, well, it depends how you interpret body confidence. It depends what you think you're asking me. So if you're asking me, do I think I have the best body in the world, and therefore I'm body confident? That's not what body confidence is to me. So to me, it's being able to remove the importance of what my body looks like. It's about being able to appreciate myself as a person for all of the good stuff that's in my heart, that's in my mind, and not letting how my body looks dictate how I feel on a day-to-day basis. So if that's what you mean, then yes, I'm extremely body confident. And I thought, it seems like such a simple question, and they ask it as if you're being a big head, going, oh well, yeah, don't I look fabulous? But it's not about that. It's not about that at all. And I think that is something that's really misunderstood for people who don't suffer with any body image issues, who don't suffer with a poor relationship with food, who haven't ever had to be on the receiving end of prejudice for the way that they look, or their skin colour, or their abilities and disabilities, all of that sort of stuff. If you've never been part of that, it's very, very difficult for you to understand what that might feel like, and to understand that it's actually not a simple question, and it doesn't come with a simple answer. So that's when you just said that about being that you're much more body confident, it really requires some explanation as to what that means, because it's not as simple as I was just like, I walk down the street thinking I'm the best thing since sliced bread. That's not what it's about.
Yeah, it's not that at all. It's for me, it's definitely not having to justify myself to a number on the scales or a dress size, and actually not thinking about it and just getting on with my life freely without having to worry about what my body looks like or what other people might think about me.
100%.
Absolutely, yeah. And obviously, this passion has driven you down a certain route in the beauty industry. But what was a real kind of spark that set you off on this kind of path to try and make changes and create waves and get so kind of passionate about it? Because I completely understand why, but what was the spark that set you off on this route?
Okay. Now, depending on who your listeners are, I'm going to be direct and to the point with this answer, but it will piss people off if they are in this part of the industry. My biggest bugbear with the beauty industry is the aesthetics section is what I have a big problem with. I have a problem with it because it's gone absolutely wild in the last sort of 5 to 7 years, where lots of medical professionals who work like in the NHS on their day-to-day job are setting up aesthetics businesses because they have the right skill set to do so, to make extra money. That's what it's about. And I feel like it's got completely out of hand with how these kind of treatments, this kind of thing used to be a real like high-end treatment changes, making physical changes with injections and things like that, you would be heading to Harley Street and paying a lot of money to do that sort of thing. And now you can literally rock up to your hairdressers or the dentist, is where I keep getting it, in my dentist, and it's everywhere. You know, you can have every part of your face, you know, tightened, lightened, nipped, tucked, different, like a million different types of facials that, you know, peeling skin off and injectables here, and it's just nuts. And the absolute icing on the cake was an advertisement that I saw pop up on my Facebook from an aesthetics business that was delivering a treatment where you could have injections in your knees to improve the appearance of your knees. And I was just like, really, like, this is just taking that moment when somebody spends in the mirror, those private moments that you have when you're taking off your makeup or doing your skincare routine or standing in your underwear, and those little insecurities that we have. My knees look a bit ugly. There's too many wrinkles around the corner of my eyes. You know, my jowls need lifting. My under eyes are too dark. You know, all those little things that we've scrutinised, and the aesthetics industry has popped up with a cure, an expensive one, for every single possible thing that you could imagine is a perceived flaw. Yeah. And I mean, I know for you, Rachel, you talk about for women that are older as well. So this is massively in that arena. Yeah. And there's no room to grow old, to be tired, to do any of the things that are normal life. And it makes people feel like crap, and it makes them spend a lot of money. And I'm all for profit. I like money. I like buying nice things. I want to have a successful business, and I want these people to have successful businesses, but there has got to be more ethics behind it. Yeah. I had a conversation with a guy that I work with who is very experienced with aesthetics and now teaches aesthetics. And he has come away from teaching Botox because it's not something that he necessarily likes. He likes to go to more I say natural treatments. I don't really know how to explain that in a quick way. But anyway.
Non-invasive.
Yeah, he's come away from teaching Botox and told me that because I said to him, tell me about, within the training in the industry, tell me about what discussions take place with students around body image issues with clients, with any kind of like body dysmorphic disorder, about eating disorders, because these clients are going to be talking about their real body image concerns with the aesthetic practitioners, even more than they would with me in the work that I do. And he said that there was a small section in the training that he delivered about the words have completely fallen out of my head, within this area anyway. But the new trainer that had taken over from him had took it out because she didn't think it was important. So there's no regulation, there's no knowledge, there's no help and support. These clients are turning up, spending a lot of money for some, getting addicted to it, obsessed with it. I really believe that it makes your eyes change what you see. So every time you go for fillers in your lips, when you're like, I'll start with just a little bit because I don't need much. But then 2 years later, your eyes have adjusted every time you've had just a little bit, and suddenly what they look like now compared to what they started with, because it just becomes you need more, and I just think the complete lack of understanding about the impact that that's having on people's mental health. At the very least, if we're going to be doing those things, we need to know where we're signposting people to for help. We need to be able to see. I just think we have to take more responsibility. I'd never have got away with stuff like that in the police. Maybe that's what fuels it. Maybe because I've come from organisations where, you are accountable. You have to take responsibility for the impact that what you say and do has on other people. That I think that the beauty industry should have to do that more as well. And they're making progress. They've increased the age limit people have to be before they can start having injectables and stuff. So there's, it's starting to get out there. They're trying to regulate training across the whole of the industry more, so that, people are getting the right quality of training. But I think this area, I really think it needs to be included at colleges through aesthetic training courses, because that at the very least will make a huge difference if it just gets people thinking. So
do you think at the core of all this, Amy, that it's really the beauty industry have created this fear around aging? So everything that they do, they're selling millions of pounds worth of products and treatments because people are scared to look their age and are scared to look older. And it starts now even younger. So even women in their 20s start it because they don't want to look older. Do you think it's kind of that's the core of it?
I believe that when people ask me why, like when they ask me what I do, and I'll try to give them a long, polite version of what it is that I do. When I get to the bit where I say basically, I'm trying to educate the industry to stop exploiting people's insecurities to make money. They go, oh yeah, that needs to happen, right? Yeah. That's what happens. And I'm not going to lie. I've taught, I've got a really successful skincare retail business. I teach, I work with a skincare brand, and I've got a team of ladies that work with me, and I have to teach them how to sell it. And part of how you sell stuff is that you solve people's problems. Yeah. But if they don't believe that there is a problem, you can't sell it to them. So you have to. That's basically is it. So, and that's why it's such a difficult subject for me to also talk to the industry about, because their answers, it will always be, for how do we make money if we're, how do we sell it if we're not solving problems, and that sort of vibe. But there's got to be a balance, because we've got to, yes, people want to look nice, they want to look their best, and I'm not against aesthetics, I'm not against beauty treatments. I love it. It's my industry, it's my work, it's where my passion is. But yes, you cannot keep making people scared of looking older. I mean, for goodness sake, I've just been to a funeral this week of a girl who is a mum at my school, and her little girl's in my daughter's class at school, and she's just died of cancer, and she's like 30. Yeah. And I just think, like, she would absolutely take any way that she would look if she could be here. Yeah. Aging is not something to be frightened of. It's an absolute bloody privilege, and I hope that I get to, go well into my 80s, 90s, 100s with a nice wrinkly face, because that's what's going to happen, because it shows, where you've been and who you are. And I think that I mean, part of what I talk about in my book, and I'm sure this is something for you too, Rachel, is about gratitude, about being grateful for what you've got. Yeah. And, that's where that for me, how you have to look at aging. Yeah. You've got to look at that you're grateful that you're even still here. You're grateful you're getting to have these things. You're grateful for the fact that your body still works. Exactly. That's about removing the aesthetics of your body not being so important. Yeah. So yes, I mean, what I hope more than my face and my body looking good is the fact that I want my joints to work properly, and I don't want my body to feel old and to slow down. Like, that's what I'm aiming for, is to try and make sure that I'm still very mobile and very, able to live an exciting life when I'm getting older, rather than worrying too much about the outside of how that looks. So yeah.
Do you think social media's got a big part to play in that with the beauty industry then? Do you think that they're really quite entwined now, the beauty industry and social media, and because it seems that it's piled even more pressure, because filters have almost become kind of normal for younger generation, so you forget actually what the reality of what you actually look like.
100%. When I talk about the subject, I call it our F world. The word, like the letter F being the primary thing, and social media and filters is one of those Fs. Finance is one of those Fs. Fear is one of those Fs. Fat phobia is one of them. these are all things that we are subjected to all the time that have created this monster, basically. And social media, I've got a massive love-hate relationship with social media because
me too.
I love how accessible it's made the world. I love all of the relationship building you can do on it, the community. You know, that's how me and you have met.
Yeah.
It's brilliant for our businesses to promote all of that, but it can be a really negative space. And this issue with filtering and editing photos, you know, I've been with friends before who are so busy editing a photo that we've just took, editing my face, may I just add. I'm like, that's a bit rude.
Yeah.
That is a little bit rude. That they miss what's going on with us.
Yeah.
And yeah, the same as what I said earlier about the aesthetics. The more you see your face looking a certain way, the more you kind of strive for it to be even more than that. And that's what the filters and the editing does, is that when you sit, because I mean, sometimes if I've ever had a filter on a picture, I'm like, oh, well, doesn't that look nice? You know, my eyes look nice and defined, my skin looks really lovely. And you think, well, that's what I'm trying to achieve when I'm putting makeup on. It's like, that's part of what you do with makeup. You think, oh God, that's. But if you only ever look at filtered images, it makes it very difficult to look in the mirror.
Yes.
It makes that, you know, those bare faces or just looking at yourself in a mirror very different because you don't have a filter on your mirror.
Yeah.
And that, with children who are getting on social media very early, who are not emotionally developed enough, emotionally, they're dealing with so much with their hormones and that already.
Yeah.
So much in that transition that it's really difficult for them to comprehend and be very strong-minded on the fact that, you know, it's not the reality.
Yeah.
And parents ask me, go on, Rachel, you go.
I just think transparency is the key, isn't it? I think I really want to see people, because I don't use filters on mine, but I understand some people want to, but I think it's about owning it and saying, I have used a filter. And I think it should be transparent, and they should have to say they've used a filter, so that when young kids do go on social media, it clearly is labelled, this has been changed, it's filtered, this is not the reality, to remind everybody and get used to that.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I was being interviewed by a journalist the other week about this very subject, and we were talking about it because there's some campaigns going on at the moment around sort of honesty with editing and that. And the journalist was telling me that she'd spoken to a psychologist who their stance on it is that yes, it would be better, but actually the reality is it won't change how people feel about themselves, because they're still seeing these perfect images, what we would see as more perfect than what we are. And that but that what it will do is it will open up more conversation about it. In the same way, you know, like they've put the labels all over the cigarette boxes because we know that cigarettes are bad for your health. It's almost like the same kind of thing. So doesn't stop people from smoking, and it's not going to stop people from filtering. It's not going to stop people from feeling crap when they see those photos. But what it will make them do is go, okay, what's the problem with filtering then? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that to my teenage kids. Let's talk about how those images make them feel. It's not just mom being difficult saying that filters are bad. It's an actual thing that is trying to be regulated, you know. So it definitely has. It definitely needs to happen. I absolutely agree with you. But I was really interested when she told me that the psychologist had got a different stance on actually how impactful it would be. But I think it's my answer when the parents ask me all the time about, well, how do I deal with this with my teenager? Is conversation. Like, you've got to have really open communication with them, because I think it's the feelings that happen internally, those mind monkeys that pop up, and not understanding that that's what that is, are the bits that can get quite damaging. Those conversations you have in quiet on your own when your head's going, you don't look as nice as the girls at school, or you know, they're all laughing at you because your boobs aren't as big, or whatever the things are. Those, being able to talk to a parent or an auntie or whoever about that, and say, you know, this is what I'm feeling when I'm seeing these images, or this is how people are making me feel about my body. Is the way to kind of help make an impact there with them. So I think that the filters filter labels will be really good.
Yeah, let's see what happens. And what kind of response have you had from the beauty industry? Because it seems to me that you're going to have to kind of knock really loudly to get through to some of these things that really need to change, but have been ingrained for so
Yeah.
long.
Do you know what? It varies in that there are people who are very on board with that messaging, and there are people who are already promoting this kind of conversation. I haven't got to a point where I've had standoffs with people or criticism necessarily. I feel like it's one of those conversations that's a behind your back kind of conversation.
Yeah.
You know, as in, what does she think she's on about? Like, how, what's that? You know, and I have, but I mean, I dealt with, I can't remember his name now. I'd have to go and find it. But there's a guy who's really well thought of in our industry, who is like a big aesthetics trainer, and he was Professional Beauty shared an interview that they'd done with him about his business and, you know, it growing at the big speed and whatever. And I read the article and commented on it to say that I'd be really interested to talk to him, because actually he has come from your world of modelling, and he talks about the pressure and the mental health issues that come from modelling, and what's expectations, but has then gone into the world of aesthetics.
Right.
And he said that his drive for going into aesthetics was because of what he experienced in the modelling industry. And I thought, that's a bit contradictory for me. Like, and not in a, you know, you're wrong, but I would love to dig deep on his mind and hear that. And I have offered for him to go on my podcast to discuss it, because I'd really like to see like where his thoughts are. We haven't come on yet, so we'll wait and see. But yeah, I think it's just about having more conversation. No one's talking about it, right? So this is the problem. It doesn't get talked about in the industry. You know, I read an article that came out in Professional Beauty yesterday that says that the UK is number 3 in the world for countries that have got body confidence, and I thought, that's nothing to that. This is such a problem. The fact that we're only like number three best. I thought, like, I can't even compute what else is going on in other countries for us to be high up the rankings and doing a good job with body confidence. But when the main people in the industry are sending that sort of stuff out, that isn't helpful, because it just completely contradicts, you know, what I want to talk to them about. And the reason that I think that the message comes across okay, because even though I am quite direct, and like I said, it will annoy some aesthetics people who have never really given it a thought about how they're making their money. But there are aesthetics practitioners that I've worked with who are very on board with making, you know, that set guidelines around that they won't do Botox and stuff till people are over 30. And are much more interested to learn about these body image issues. So I wouldn't say it's been received badly, but I'm definitely just scratching at the door at the minute. I'm not like fully, you know, loading and blowing bullets through the door. So I'll keep you posted.
What's the long-term goal then? So what would be a long-term goal? What's next?
My long-term goal, my big mission, is to have at least 2 salons / beauty businesses in each city in the UK that are promoting body positivity, that are diverse and are inclusive for all bodies, including people with disabilities, who are massively left out of being able to access some of the services. So really what that is, making people, you know, having businesses that are prepared to put ethics as important as their profit making, so that starts being able to signpost that, you know, anybody that comes to me that is interested in what I do needs a salon that will help them feel good, that I can point them in the right direction for wherever they live. So that's what I would like to achieve. And that, you know, so it's really about me teaching them how to do that. And it's not, you know, it's the changes, they're not rocket, it's not rocket science, and it's not expensive. I mean, some of the things with making the buildings more accessible and that, yes, they're going to cost some money, but there's grants that people can get. So there'll be things that people aren't even aware of.
Yeah.
You know, from a body positivity point of view, you know, it's looking at what brands you're working with and how they represent bodies. It's making sure that different bodies are represented in your media and the posters that are on the run. Look at the magazines that you're choosing to use. You know, can you switch your magazines up for books instead? You know, look at what language you're using when you're promoting your services, when you're writing a treatment menu. Are they just highlighting people's perceived flaws, or are they uplifting and empowering? Are they about relaxation and self-care, or are they about changing your body? You know, so there's lots. It's just, some of it is just quite subtle messaging, but can make a massive difference. You know, we see a lot of before and after images, and you know, do we need to always be sharing them? Do we need to be sending this message that look at what a bad crap you look before I put your makeup on, and now look at, you know, do the end bit, but talk about that experience that your client had, talk about the conversations that you had, talk about the way that they were feeling. Those sorts of things are just as impactful, without having to do the bad bit to the good bit. And I just think it can be a much more positive space. So long term, that's what I'm aiming for, is to have more places that you can go, that I have trained, that you can have confidence are going to look after that side of your mental well-being when you go somewhere.
Well, you are a breath of fresh air, Amy. I love it, and I'm sure you're going to make massive waves in the beauty industry, and keep doing it, because I think, you know, just keep banging that drum and don't give up, which I know you won't do. If you were to pay yourself a compliment, what would it be?
Right. Well, this was another one. Obviously, we discussed this before we started recording, that it is a bit of a weird thing to pay yourself compliments, but it is important to be able to acknowledge, you know, what's good about us. So I encourage my ladies to look at their heart, their hands, and their mind, and what the things are about those three areas of them that are good. And one of the things about myself that I like is the fact that I have got a real thirst for knowledge. So my brain, I've got a big brain, and I've got a brain that's really good at interpreting information to then share it in a way that's really understandable and relatable for people. I love to read, I love to listen to podcasts, I love to learn. You know, I can't ever get enough. If I'm ever sitting still and I've not got something going on, the types of books that I read, I don't ever read fiction books, because I like to come out of them with something tangible that's going to make a difference to my life or somebody else's. So everything's about learning all the time, and I just love to talk to people and find people very interesting. So that would be my compliment to myself, is that
I love this question, because, and the interesting thing is, I've interviewed 112 people now, and not one person, I don't think, has mentioned anything about their appearance. It's always a personality trait. It's always something that they like about themselves, what they're doing in life, and what they're putting into life, what they're getting out of it, and that's the most important thing. And it's really people find you?
Oh, how can they find me? Well, I am on I'm on all the social media platforms. So you can find me at the Beauty Rebellion on Instagram and Facebook. I've got a Facebook group called Girl Talk at the Powder Room. So that Girl Talk is my podcast, which is a tool for salon owners to signpost their clients with. So we talk about anything that affects women, basically. And we hang out at the Facebook group, and then you can head to my website, which is beautyrebellion.co.uk, and find out all of the stuff that's going on there. So
brilliant. I shall share all those with the show notes, Amy. Thank you so much, and I'm so glad that our paths have crossed and that we've connected, and I'm looking forward to watching what you do next.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Take care, babes.
Bye. Well, another thought-provoking interview. Thank you, Amy, so much for joining me, and I hope it's given you some food for thought about kind of how you feel about the beauty industry, and what impact it might have on your day-to-day feelings about yourself. I do not have any problem with a woman choosing to have their aesthetics done or anything that they want to do to themselves, because it's not up to us to judge or put our own opinions on somebody else's appearance. But what really does upset me is if somebody is doing that out of the fear that society has created around aging. So if it's something that they're feeling pressure to do rather than actually something that makes them feel good, then that's when I have an issue with it. But I hope that, you know, Amy's thoughts and the work that she's doing to try and make some change in the beauty industry is starting to create these really important conversations. I will be back in the fortnight, but in the meantime, keep being fabulous.